What is going on, people? It's Matt from Liquid Loans, and in this one, I'm joined by CC, the CEO of Liquid Loans, for some updates that are hot off the press and straight from the Liquid Loans HQ. So with no further ado, let's go. Hey Christian, great to see you.
Hey, good to see you, Matt.
Yeah, so last week was a big one for Liquid Loans with the release of the Dapp on the Testnet. Can you give us some updates on how that's all going?
Yeah, look, we're really happy with it, how that went for us initially, and obviously with the rolling that out for the community and the feedback that we've gotten. I think having the ticketing system available has been really helpful. So we've had a lot of feedback, really positive feedback on the Dapp. There have been some enhancement requests, which is really nice to get. And so we're working through that. What I wanted to sort of share with the community around that is that obviously, as we continue to evolve and introduce some of these enhancements, we will provide an update. So there will be a mechanism to enable people to see, okay, what are the things that we fixed? If there were some bugs, have we managed to iron those out and sort those out? So there'll be a list of some of that. There'll also be a list of all the enhancements that we've introduced for the next version. Whilst the front end is easy enough to do that, it's a little bit more challenging when if we have to make any changes to the smart contracts. Now, the reality is we don't expect to have to do too much of that, but there will be some things that we'll need to do in the future to incorporate changes to supply, for example. So whilst we've got a supply within the system at the moment, that's going to change. And what I mean by that is the actual token supply. It's going to change because we'll go through a process of looking at what we currently have, making some final adjustments to that. So ultimately, when we deploy and when we release, potentially that if the people are going to receive any airdrops, when we do that, we need to make sure that all of that is configured into the system. So there will be some changes to smart contracts eventually. And so when that happens, that's a very different proposition than just an update where we're making some enhancements to the front end. So that'll happen, but rest assured that we'll provide enough information for people to understand that. One thing that we'll need to be able to manage well is when we do have to change smart contracts at all, and I think we will do based on what I've just mentioned, what will occur is anyone that has any of their test pulse locked up in the system, there will be an opportunity available for you to unlock that pulse so that ultimately when we redeploy the contracts, you're able to still get a hold of your test pulse to be able to go and use that. And I think by and large, most people will understand the need to do that, and will allow the previous version to remain so that there is an easy migration to any new versions that we release. The other thing I wanted to point out is that we'll probably make a change to the faucet. So at the moment, where anyone that wants to go and obtain loan token, they have to go to the faucet. Mm-hmm. It's really important that people understand that it's just a faucet. So what we're creating here is test loan that you can obtain to your own personal wallet. At the moment, we're only issuing 10. We'll probably make a change to that. What I mean by that is we'll probably increase the amount of loan token that you can actually go to obtain from the faucet. So we'll go through a process of changing that. That won't necessarily affect any of the smart contracts. It's just an ability for people to access more loan token. The only thing that we can't do, which is just unfortunate, but there are members out there in the community that maybe haven't sacrificed for Pulse, and as a consequence, they don't have a lot of test Pulse. Now, whilst you can go to the Pulse faucet to obtain some test Pulse, the amount that you get there is quite low. And so people that may not have sacrificed for Pulse, unfortunately, I think there'll be some restrictions in terms of what you can access and test. So obviously the borrowing function, there is a minimal amount required to be able to borrow against Pulse. And as a consequence of that, people that haven't sacrificed for Pulse, that don't have a lot of test Pulse, may struggle with that. So we might look at ways to help those folk. I'm not sure. Obviously, we'll need to work with the dev team over at Pulse and just make sure that we can actually accommodate some of that. But by and large, most people that are using the system have test Pulse, and they've been able to do that and be able to use the full functionality of the system. So there's some changes there. I think it's really important that people get the opportunity to try and break the thing. I mean, this is the whole idea of Testnet, is to enable people to access it, make some comments if there's some things that they don't particularly like or they'd like to see enhanced. By and large, most of the enhancements are quite good. There were some that were a bit odd. And as a result, we've provided the appropriate feedback to some of those requests. But ultimately, I think most people are really enjoying using the Dapp, and I expect that there'll be further feedback once we issue the next release of the Dapp itself.
Awesome to hear. Also, I know the sacrifice balances are being calculated right now in their final form, if I'm not mistaken. Can you let us know how that's going on?
Yeah, no, that's good. So it's interesting. We went through the whole process of checking people's referral links, making sure that everyone had received all their referrals. I think the list at the end of the day, the changes that we've had to make, I think there's 7 wallets that we've had to fix just for some problems with what was recorded. So if you think about that, there's 7 transactions out of a total of 17,700 and whatever it was that we've had to sort of tidy up. And I think what I mentioned before to people is that whilst it's only 7, everyone's balances is going to change as a consequence of that, right? So what typically happens is that you make a change to one and it has a flow-on effect for everyone else. So even though it's not a lot of changes that we need to make to the balances, it will have an effect on everyone's balance. So hopefully in the positive, but there may be some slight adjustments. I don't expect that people's balances will be wildly different, but you may notice a slight difference. We're aiming to have all of those completed by the end of next week. So by the end of next week, we'll make another announcement, Matt, just around, hey guys, go and check your final balances. Yeah. But it's been really good that taking the approach we've taken has meant that we've been able to do this in a very considered way. It hasn't sort of, been this constant change of balances and not understanding what your balance is from one day to the next. So the approach we've taken, we're pretty happy with that. But obviously at the end of that period, once we do release the final SAC balances, that's it. They're final. So we're not entering into any further correspondence around anything that may occur after that date. So it's just the way it's worked out. And I think most people responded well to that. So really happy with that.
Awesome. Good to know. If we could just go back to the faucet, I know we touched on it earlier, but I've seen a few people asking online how to get the test loan tokens. Can you give us a bit of info on how that works and how people can obtain those loan tokens easily?
Yeah, that's fine. So I think if people have a look at the Dapp, and there's obviously the list of different aspects of the Dapp on the left-hand side, you'll notice towards the end of that list, there is an option that says faucet. Now you call it, what did you call it? That's the language difference, right? So we call it a faucet. You call it a faucet.
Faucet, yeah, the accent.
Whichever preference you have on that, just have a look at the Dapp and you'll see that there's a link there. Click on that link. All you need to do is basically connect your wallet, request some of those tokens. And what happens is, and at the moment, it's 10 loan token per day. So we'll make a change to that. So we'll probably up the number. I'm not entirely sure how much we'll push out, but it'll be more than 10. So people go, obtain those loan tokens. It will be transferred to your wallet. You'll also notice that there is a token address for the loan token. So if you want to add that to your MetaMask wallet, because typically, even though we can send you the tokens, they don't automatically appear in your MetaMask wallet. You have to import the token. So the token wallet address is there, so you'll be able to add that in, and then you'll see that in your MetaMask wallet as well. The system will automatically pick up the balance, but if you want to see it in MetaMask, you do actually have to import the token itself.
Another previous exciting announcement we had recently was the partnership with Tellor, the decentralized Oracle protocol. How's it going with those guys, and what does the integration process look like?
Yeah, no, it's really good. So there's been a lot of work being done with those guys. I think we've obviously managed to bring the contracts over into Pulse Chain. We also have the node or the reporter up and running. So we're sort of going through the process of creating a few more of those. We're trying to create a process to really simplify the establishment of a reporter. So for a lot of people, you've probably heard about that there's a validator set for Pulse Chain. And effectively, it's people that are providing information to support the network. Just as much as we would do that for Pulse, you can also be part of a community that supports price feeds for an Oracle. And in the Tellor system, that's known as a reporter. Some people will know that as a node. Some people might think of that in terms of a validator. But ultimately what it is someone in the community prepared to do the work to provide price feeds for the Oracle service. And I think for us, that's really important that we make that as simple as possible. And the main reason for that is we'd like a lot of people doing it. And there's some commercial benefit in doing that, in that if you are providing price feeds, you do potentially obtain an incentive for doing so. So not only are you supporting Liquid Loans and providing an Oracle service to PulseChain, but you're also incentivized through token allocation by providing the information to the community. So going really, really well. As you know, Matt, we're probably going to have an interview with Brenda, the CEO, and Nick, the CTO, where we sort of explain that in a little bit more detail. So I'm really looking forward to that interview with those guys. Again, the aim being we want to educate and inspire the community. We really want you to be part of this overall ecosystem. I think we're believers, obviously, in PulseChain, and definitely we'll be doing what we need to do from a validation point of view. But more importantly, providing an Oracle service we believe is important. And whilst I think, and people need to understand this, we are currently using PulseX to provide a price feed. Because I think Richard was on a stream recently where he's mentioned that, hey, there is an Oracle service in PulseX, and that's absolutely right. We'll be using PulseX to provide price calls for Liquid Loans. Where I think it differs, and this is important for us, and whilst we don't necessarily feel that PulseX will ever be a risk for us, we do believe it's a solid, it'll be a solid DEX that we can draw information from. It's just one source. So if you end up with potentially someone manipulating any of those liquidity pools, there could be an issue. So all we're wanting to provide is a level of redundancy. So having an Oracle service, the difference is you can have a really, really good price call from PulseX, but it only takes one person to manipulate that, and then that can cruel it for you. As opposed to having an Oracle service where, and particularly one as decentralized as Tellor will be, is that you can have multiple people doing that. So all of a sudden, providing price feed from multiple sources. So ultimately what that does is it's a method of decentralizing your price feed and reducing risk. So the balancing act for us is we absolutely believe in PulseX, and we know that that's going to be part of the solution. But we also need to have an Oracle service just to provide the redundancy that we're looking for.
Fantastic. Okay, so last time you were on CC, we talked about the Chamber of Digital Commerce. How are things going with that?
Yeah, really good. I think one of the things that we were conscious of is that it's one thing to say something and say how great something is and that, we all need to support it, but you have to put your money where your mouth is. So from our point of view, we really do believe in the work that's being done there. And for those that don't know, they are a lobby group aimed at promoting the benefits of cryptocurrency more broadly to larger organisations, but also more importantly to government, right? So they are very much a lobby group. And from our point of view, it's rather than just expect everyone else to be the funders of that, we felt, we should become members of that organisation. So we're going through a process at the moment to obtain membership, and we'll do that in our own right. But it was interesting, how the journeys that have progressed. There's a really young up-and-coming NFT artist, and I think you may have met her,
Arawanda, yeah.
Yeah, look, really liked what she did for Hex and also for Pulse. And I reached out and look, she's Brazilian. I don't speak Portuguese, but it's almost like I can understand it. Now, we haven't had a conversation, but we've exchanged sort of messages on Twitter, and she's organised to develop some nice art for us. And I thought, well, okay, we're going to become members of the Chamber. Hey, wouldn't this be nice if we can help promote the work that she's doing and showcase that? Because I really love what she's done. And maybe look at an auction so we can auction off the work that she's done for us. And the difference being that instead of it just being an auction off of an NFT, which is how does Richard phrase it? It's a JPEG loosely related to a serial number. I don't know, one of those things.
A serial number loosely related to a JPEG that may or may not be hosted on the internet, something like that.
That's exactly right. So we're not just going to auction that off. we'll auction that off because I think, people see value in that. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of NFTs, but I think I like the art itself. And we figured that if we auction that off along with the original, whatever funds we're able to raise, we're very happy to donate to the chamber, and we'll do that as part of that process. So really excited about that. Really like the work that Arawanda's actually doing, and I think you've organised some time to have a chat with her as well. So it'll be nice to hear from her, and hopefully, soon we'll be able to have this auction and to see how it goes. But really excited about that.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a win-win, and I'm looking forward to that myself.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Matt. Thanks very much for your time today.
Thanks, Christian. Great to see you as always. So I hope you enjoyed that update video with CC. If you like content like this, do hit that subscribe button and that bell button so you're notified every time we drop new videos on the channel. You can also tap the like button, share the video with someone who you think it may benefit, and if you're feeling very, very, very kind, consider dropping a cheeky little comment below for the algo. It does help us out. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.